I just want to introduce TOMEEKA. I'm going to read her bio so that you know who she is, especially the people online. It says, my story began in Washington, D.C., where I was born to a teen mother wanting a better life for me. She gave me up to be raised by my father's family. I grew up unaware that the woman who I called mom had no biological connection to me. After I found out the hidden truth, I spent many years daydreaming of what it would be like to find a mother. My teen years were pretty traumatic, you name it, became a part of my experience. Becoming a single mom at the age of 20 sent me on a lifelong journey of self-discovery, transformation, and healing. During the period, I went on a self-love journey. Unfortunately, I would experience the greatest loss of my life. My son, Azor, passed away at a tender age of 2, finding the strength to pick up the pieces after his ultimate death and live a joy-filled life was not initially easy. My faith during this time was all I had. Throughout the various triumphs and trials that I experienced in my life, I have always found community amongst other women. I became transparent in my dialogue with the women, and I encountered my prayers were to be a vessel living without guilt or shame. The blessing that came when you surrender to let the Spirit guide you, pouring into other women and being a true example that there is always a way to empower yourself right where you are. No matter what your past looks like, your future is so bright. Put on your glasses and let's get it. My greatest inspiration in this life has been the love and the support of my amazing husband and children. Join this self-movement. Yours, TOMEEKA Morris. Shall we stand to our feet and invite this incredible woman? I just read let's all the music, lift it up. Let's just TOMEEKA Morris, a dynamic woman that fears the Lord. Love you.
Love you too. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to honor God with my presence here today, my family, my daughter, my son-in-law, Jocelyn, my nephew, Devontae, and my grandchildren. I didn't really know I was speaking today. I thought I was just coming to check it out, but I'm just going to do what God says do and get up here and just share a little bit more of my story. My story is just simply that throughout all the trauma, drama, life experiences, I was a little girl who just loved God. Like, no matter what, I just trusted Him. And I knew He had an awesome and amazing plan for my life. So whenever I would go through something, I was like, really, this too, God? Like, this too? And He was like, yeah, you can, I got you. And I just trusted Him. I believed Him. And, you know, my journey was one like most people. You know, I get up and go to church, but I really didn't understand that word until I had to really sit with myself in the Word and learn it. And I came across Job. That story transformed everything that I would ever go through, because I was like, okay, Job loved God just like I love God. Like, he just had faith in him, faith that his wife didn't even have. So sometimes your faith has to be one of, it doesn't matter who's around you who don't believe what you believe. Just trust God despite it all. And in reading Job's story, when he was going through and you know, the devil got permission from God to do all the things that he was doing. And Job didn't know this. Job just knew that, okay, but I trust my God. And his wife was like, you should curse your God and die. And he was like, no, never that. I'm not going to do that. And so because he was so faithful, everything that the devil took, God restored and gave it back to him. Double. And so I said, God, if he can do that for Job and he has no respect for people, I mean, he's a God who, if he did it for Job, he could do it for you. And so I said, you know, when I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me and my journey was my son. Because before my son died, I was a little girl getting dressed for school one day, and I heard a story of a little boy who fell out of his bedroom window. And I thought, wow, I knew the girl that it had happened to, and I was still a teenager. And I was like, how's she going to live without her son? And about 10 years later, I had to walk that same journey. And I was like, how am I going to live without my son? And I remember that day, like, oh, you asked. So he's showing me how I would live without my son. And so, God, I just like, when I say this too, my mother left me when I was a few years old. Then I had another mother, and she too would leave. And then my son. So I was like, all of this loss for people who's supposed to be here. But God never left. And he said, girl, just trust me. And I did. And I said, you know, God, I want what Job got. I want double for my trouble. Let me tell you how good God is. When my son died, after he was born, I got my tubes like tied, burnt, clipped, no more kids. I had a 9-year-old daughter, then I had this little boy. I was good. And then I met my husband, and we decided to have more children. I was like, I can't. Well, I could. Come to find out, you can do in vitro, and you can have more kids. So I have 2 more kids. Double for my trouble. And not that my daughters replaced my son, but it was me asking God for the same story or the same testimony that Job had. I wanted to be like Job on earth. I wanted to tell my friends, despite all that you go through, if you just trust God, everything that the devil means for bad, he can give you back more than that, okay? Because I got more. I got a husband. I got my children. I now have grandchildren. I have my mother back who was gone. I was like, I'm having more kids. I don't have grandparents for these kids. I found my mother. She was gone for 20-something years. So God restores, and he does it so much better than you can ever think or imagine. But you have to trust him in just this much, not even a lot. So whenever I meet women, they look at me and they're like, oh, wow, I'm not so great. God is so great, But you can too. You can look this great too after your testimony if you just trust him. If you read his word and you test him in his word, you say, God, listen, oh, you did this for these people and your word says this, I'm going to sit and wait. And I remember being on the floor crying after my son passed, thinking, oh my God, I can't do this. And he was like, you trust me? And I woke up that day trusting him a little more and more and more because my heart was so broken. I had never had heartbreak like that before in my life. And I just remember thinking, God, if you could just take this pain from my heart, I think I can do this with your help. And he did. Each day it lessened. It got to the point where it got so easy, it seemed, that I felt ashamed for being happy again. So, the devil is tricky. He will have you thinking you're supposed to be sad for the rest of your days. He will have you thinking loss is way more important than God is. It's not. It is nothing new under the sun. Nothing that I've gone through is new. Nothing that you go through will be new. But if you trust him with your whole heart, he restores, he gives back everything that the devil meant for your bad. He gives it back to you. 200%. Trust him in it. Trust him in it. On your weakest day, just say, God, I can't. And he'll show up for you just like he showed up for me and like he showed up for Job. So read your word. Trust him. Honor him with your thoughts. Because our thoughts are not like his. Just say, God, I know this thought is not of you. So change my thoughts. Change my mind. Put me on the path that you have for my life. He has purpose for your life. He does. That's why you're all here, because he has purpose for your life. So my story, I try to tell people I'm no different than anybody else. I just told my story. And if my story is here to help anybody, it's really just to challenge you into your thinking, knowing that your story is really not about you. It's always about the next person and helping them grow. Because when people see that you can do and you're evidence of it, they know that they have the strength too. So thank you for having me here today, and hopefully I'll be back to inspire and let everybody know that, God is for all of us. And if he's for us, who can be against us in this world? Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Give her a hand. Thank you for sharing this wonderful story. That's wonderful. Everyone has got a story. When I read that book, I was weeping, but seeing the redemption, the reward, how God does restore. Many of you have lost something, or you are going some kind of a loss. I want you to know that God is a God of redemption, and God will restore it.